Oh, definitely. The current narrative transitions abruptly between personal family moments, a corporate lifestyle rebrand, and Hollywood career rumors, creating a really disjointed reading experience.
Right, it feels like we're just bouncing around.
Yeah, exactly. The core weakness here is that moving directly from those sweet, private Mother's Day celebrations into the polished launch of a commercial brand, and then immediately into industry negotiations, well, it fails to guide the lifestyle reader through these extreme shifts in tone.
I mean, I guess a writer looking at this might just think, hey, I'm just delivering the news as it happened. These events all took place over the same weekend.
Sure, and, a timeline approach works if you're writing for a wire service. But for a general audience interested in celebrity lifestyle news, they aren't just looking for a timeline.
No, they want a story.
Right. They're seeking a specific emotional experience. The text actually starts off doing a great job cultivating that empathy, making the reader relate to this highly publicized figure on a fundamental parental level.
Right, by showing the kids at the theme park, it builds this parasocial bond.
Exactly. It gets the reader into a very specific, warm, human headspace. But then, without any warning, the very next paragraph pivots to website rebranding and Instagram profile pictures.
It just totally shatters that bond.
It really does. The reader is left stranded, just wondering how the relatable mother at the theme park connects to the polished entrepreneur selling jam.
Yeah, the abruptness is honestly jarring. So how does a writer fix this without, editorializing too much or inventing a connection that just isn't there?
Well, my suggestion is to use transitional thematic bridges that connect these disparate updates by highlighting the underlying strategy of the subject's public reemergence.
Okay, thematic bridges. I like that. But what does that actually look like on the page?
You basically frame the Disneyland trip not just as a standalone event, but as the relatable foundation before introducing the aspirational brand. So, a concrete example would be inserting a transitional sentence between the park visit and the Instagram update.
Something to act as a buffer?
Yes, exactly. Something like, this relatable family-first image perfectly sets the stage for her latest business venture. Or even, just hours after showing her approachable side as a mother, the Duchess leveraged that goodwill to introduce her new professional endeavor.
Oh, I really like that second option. It honors the warmth of the previous paragraph, but also introduces the strategic, business-minded focus of the next one.
Yeah, it acts as a narrative shock absorber, right?
Definitely.
And it elevates the whole piece from mere gossip aggregation into insightful commentary. You're telling the reader, look at how masterfully this transition is being handled. It acknowledges that the juxtaposition of the private mother and the public entrepreneur isn't an accident.
Right, it's a carefully curated comeback, which actually leads us perfectly into how the writer handles the description of that comeback once we get into the lifestyle brand section. Let's look closely at the section discussing the new Instagram profile and the As Ever website. We get this highly detailed list of visual updates.
We do.
Like the switch from the formal white dress to blue jeans and a white t-shirt. And then we get all these actions from the promo video. She's eating a raspberry, arranging flowers, opening fruit spread. It feels a bit like reading a recipe's ingredients without knowing what the final dish tastes like.
That's a great way to put it.
Should the text be doing more to interpret these visuals?
Absolutely. The presentation of the lifestyle brand relies too heavily on a clinical listing of visual details without exploring the intended emotional resonance for the audience.
So the weakness is just literally telling us what happens in the video.
Yes, the text merely lists the actions, opening fruit spread, placing a bookmark, without explaining why this shift from royal formality to a casual, denim-wearing aesthetic matters to a reader interested in celebrity lifestyle.
I mean, as a reader, I intuitively feel that the wardrobe change from a white dress to blue jeans is a massive shift, but the text doesn't really help me unpack that.
And it should. That wardrobe change is a massive semiotic shift, and the writer leaves the analysis entirely on the table. Like, think about what a formal white dress communicates in her specific context.
Royalty, distance, tradition.
Exactly. It's a very guarded image. But blue jeans and a white t-shirt, they signal a Californian identity. They signal accessibility in this sort of hands-on, messy reality. The writer puts these images side by side, but doesn't strike the match to ignite the insight.
But wait, let me push back on that a little. If the writer explicitly spells out that the blue jeans are a strategic move to look more accessible, do they risk making the brand sound, I don't know, overly calculated? Does it ruin the fun vibe?
Not at all. I mean, decoding that strategy is exactly the service a modern lifestyle journalist provides. The audience for this is highly media literate.
That's true. They consume a lot of influencer content.
Right, so they already know that sitting on a kitchen counter eating a raspberry isn't an accidental, candid moment. It's marketing. So when the text just lists the actions clinically, it flattens the aesthetic. It makes it sound almost boring.
It's like my recipe analogy again. You list strawberries and sugar, but leave out the jam. So what is your suggestion here? How do we describe the meal?
The suggestion is to elevate the descriptive list into a cohesive lifestyle narrative that decodes the aesthetic shift, explaining the specific vibe the subject is trying to sell to the audience.
Okay, give me a concrete example of how to do that.
Sure, instead of just stating she is sitting casually in an armchair, explain that this everyday elegance is the core promise of as ever.
Everyday elegance. I like that phrasing.
Right, and you connect the visual of the fruit from her garden to the promise of bringing delight to your everyday. You explicitly point out that the brand is attempting to pivot her image from an untouchable duchess to an accessible Californian domestic entrepreneur.
That makes so much sense. It takes the observation that she's arranging flowers and explains the why behind it. She's selling a feeling of pastoral peace.
Exactly. And it validates the reader's subconscious reaction to the video. When they see the genes, they feel that intended accessibility. Explicitly decoding it transforms a basic news brief into sharp cultural commentary.
Okay, so we've guided the reader from the family trip into the strategic launch of the brand using a thematic bridge. We've decoded the visual elements to emphasize that accessible aesthetic. But then, we hit the final act of the source material.
Right, the Hollywood news.
Yeah, the article suddenly pivots again to the rumors of a Suits revival, returning as Rachel Zane, and negotiations for a co-executive producer role with Universal Pictures.
Yeah, and the final segment regarding the television revival feels tacked on as an afterthought, rather than serving as the definitive climax of the subject's professional renaissance.
That makes sense, but could the evidence also support a different conclusion? That burying this major Hollywood news at the very bottom diminishes its impact? Because we just spent all this time building up the accessible, everyday mother making jam. Doesn't ending on massive Hollywood news ruin that relatable vibe?
Well, no, because the Hollywood deal is the ultimate payoff of the entire public relations strategy. The weakness here is that by dropping the news of a potential Hollywood return and a lucrative co-executive producer role at the very end of the piece, the article buries a massive, high-stakes career pivot underneath jams and Disney airs.
Oh, I see. It treats a huge industry shift like a footnote.
Exactly. Think about the power dynamics. The theme park trip cultivates empathy. Launching Fruit Spread cultivates an aspirational audience. But negotiating a co-executive producer role with Universal, that is structural power.
Wow, yeah. That represents real narrative control. So the relatable mom and the entrepreneur are the foundation that gives her the leverage for the studio negotiation.
Exactly. That is the overarching narrative. The writer has all these fascinating puzzle pieces on the table, but they haven't snapped them together. You can't just taper off into minor details at the bottom of a feature like this.
You have to build to a climax.
Right, so my suggestion is to rebalance the article's weight to position the Hollywood return as the ultimate culmination of her current media blitz, tying the family, brand, and career together in a strong concluding thought.
Okay, so how do we practically synthesize that? Give me a concrete example of tying a Disney hug, a jar of jam, and a studio contract into one sentence.
You conclude by noting how the strategic rebranding on Instagram directly fuels her Hollywood capital. So a concluding sentence could be, whether she is fiercely protecting her children's privacy at Disneyland, curating garden preserves for as ever, or stepping back into Rachel Zane's legal shoes, she is aggressively reclaiming her narrative on all fronts.
Oh, wow. That is incredibly powerful.
Right? It does so much heavy lifting. It reminds the reader of the journey they just went on, validates all three distinct events, and leaves them with the definitive thesis.
It really transforms it from just a random list of weekend updates into a cohesive portrait of someone taking total control of their public life. And I mean, ultimately, that's what a lifestyle audience wants to read.
They absolutely do. They want to understand how she's navigating her world.
Well, to wrap things up, let's briefly recap the actionable suggestions we've covered in today's critique. First, the writer needs to smooth out those tonal shifts by using thematic bridges that connect the family updates to the business launches.
Keep that emotional momentum going.
Right. Second, they need to decode the visual elements, like the blue jeans and the raspberry, to emphasize the emotional resonance, pointing out that shift toward an accessible Californian aesthetic. And finally, the narrative weight of the article needs to be rebalanced so the Hollywood news isn't buried, but instead serves as a cohesive climax.
Yeah, making those specific adjustments will completely transform the piece from a simple timeline into a really compelling, unified narrative.
It's all about revealing the larger strategy at play. We warmly invite the listener to apply these actionable steps and submit their revised work or any new material for another critique. Strategy is everything, and looking past those surface details is what makes a feature truly captivating.